What happened after you answered an ex's call text? It was years after we broke up. She married, moved away, had kids, and her husband cheated and left her, just like she did to me. She got my number from a mutual friend and I had no idea it was her calling. She apologized, cried a lot, told me she finally understood what being cheated on felt like, and wanted to make amends. I could tell she was in a really bad place and I just listened. She wasn't trying to get back together, or hook up, or want anything at all from me other than for me to know she understands the pain she caused. She moved back to my town a couple years later and while we're not friends, we run into each other around town and smile and say hi. She reaches out every once in a while, when she's lonely, sad, wants the attention. She's now married with 2 young ones and I got a message out of the blue, to be fair. First message from her in like 2 years, apologizing for how she treated me and cheating on me. Against my better judgment, I replied to this one, and within 10 minutes of us making light chit chat about our own kids, she tells me to think of her if I ever happen to be single again. She'll be waiting. Thanks but no thanks. They went back to their hometown to help a family emergency. Being the 90s and us only being 18/20, long distance didn't work very easy. Both of us moved on, got married, had kids. 20 some years later my spouse was dying from cancer and they were divorcing theirs for cheating when they ran across a YouTube video of a tax seminar I was giving on the Acre. We helped each other get through those issues as friends, then decided we never got a real chance back in high school. Gave it another try, and now been married for 8 years next month. She asked when I was coming back to our hometown to visit. We wound up getting a meal and then having sex. 30 years later and we've been married for 20 and have 2 kids. The breakup had been amicable and there was no cheating on either side. We were just young and her mother didn't think we should be in such a serious relationship at our young age. She asked me if I was getting married. I told her that I was and that I was happily doing so. That was about 3 months ago, and neither I nor the kids have heard a word from her. Cool for me, sheety for the kids. My line cheating former fiancé just called me after 5 years. This was 2 days ago. I ignored it. Not stupid enough to give her another chance. It's been a year since I blocked my cheating ex-wife's number, no regrets. I have nothing to gain by letting her have access to me anymore. It's a shame. We were together for almost 11 years, but for the foreseeable future, I want nothing to do with her. We got married. I mean, not immediately after. The most immediate outcome was making plans to have dinner when he was in town. Several months down the road, after intermittent contact, we started dating again. Then became a couple again. Then we got married. This gives me hope. I had to move away for a job and broke up, but we plan to get dinner drinks when I'm back in a few months. I love her so much and wish we hadn't broken up, but we are too far. This gives me hope everything will work out and that it's not a totally rare thing for people to spend some time apart before spending their lives together. It was back a ways, pre-modern cell phones and such. It was when I was at university. She had been abusive to say the least. I was finally away from her, I thought. I ended our relationship in the summer. Moved back to uni in a house she shouldn't have known a thing about. One night the phone rings. I didn't recognize the number. I picked it up, said hello, and there was no voice on the other end. I said hello a second time and they hung up. In that moment I was sure it was her. And sure enough, about 10 minutes later the doorbell rang. I looked out and it was her. I called the cops. I didn't know what to do. Asked me for $1,000. She already owed me $800. I came to terms with that I wasn't getting. I ended up leading her on until the day of that she needed it and told her no. She cheated on me with my best friend and had a baby with him. Then I moved out and we went to court for my son and everything. We had a court order that my son couldn't be around certain people she was living with. She called asking me to, not in these words, more subtle manipulative ones, even though I had been onto her games for years, break the court order, and drive an hour to the house she lived in with the people my son can't be around. in the middle of nowhere, in a field, and have dinner with them. This was after she failed to pick my son up for her time with him multiple times, telling me I could keep him for various reasons. Usually her car was broken down. Lie. I had him for 2 months straight before that call. After that I haven't heard from her, and got full custody of my son due to abandonment because she hasn't called, texted, or shown up for over a year and a half. My kid is too young to understand, and only knows he can't be around her because she's making bad decisions, which is what DHS told me to tell him. I feel bad for him, of course. As for me, duck her. Glad she's gone. He's better off with me by a long shot. Enjoy your new meth habit. I heard him and his new army buddies laughing before he called me a bitch, laughed with his friends some more, and I hung up. He had become really toxic toward the end of our relationship and expressed his wishes to hurt me to our other friends after I broke it off. Supposedly he's cooled off and regretted all that, including that phone call, but I'm just glad he's on the other side of the country. My ex and I split up, and a few weeks later, she called me asking her to help move a dresser into her apartment. She didn't have a car and paid me $50 for gas since I had a truck. I said yeah, no problem. Picked her up, went to Target to pick it up, and dropped it off. I noticed that when I picked her up, she was wearing a crop top with no bra, something she never usually did. We dropped it off inside, and she immediately was like, "Take off your pants." It was weird. When we were together, we hardly had sex. Maybe 1x every 3 months. That day, we had 4x in 2 hours. Then I left like nothing happened. Happened years after we had a very nasty mutual breakup followed by no contact. She wanted to know what my mailing address was, because she had found something she had of mine while moving that she remembered was of great sentimental value to me, and wanted to make sure it made it back to me. I was appreciative, but not surprised. We were very much not a good match, but she's a good person. I would have done the same if I found something important to her, and I'm sure she knows that about me. We're not friends or anything, and we probably won't speak again. But it takes nothing to be kind and decent to one another, particularly someone you once loved. Or even still love, even if you don't want them in your life anymore. Funny how love works, isn't it? Well, I had a boyfriend of almost 3 years who convinced me to move a state away from where I wanted to stay. 5.5 hours away. But he thought it would be cool to move to the other state. It was August when we moved. My mother was moving to that state, so we went with her. He wanted to go back to visit his mom that Thanksgiving, but I asked him to stay with me and wait until Christmas time to go visit his mom because my favorite cousin had just died on Thanksgiving. So he stayed through Thanksgiving and left right before Christmas. He was supposed to be gone for a week, and through that time, I never heard from him, but I didn't call him because I didn't want to seem like I was being annoying. On the day he was supposed to come back, his dad called me to let me know he wasn't coming back. He had decided to stay there, and I couldn't talk to him because he was out on a date. I didn't even try to call him after that. I pretended, to myself, that he had died on his trip home. He called me 6 months later. Wanted to get back together. I started laughing hysterically. Asked him if he was mentally deficient. He said, "What do you mean?" I told him, "You left me on Christmas, right after me losing my cousin on Thanksgiving, and you think I would take you back?" He was actually surprised and sounded bummed and said, "Oh, I guess you don't need me anymore." My reply, "Ha ha ha. No, I don't." Nothing positive. She left me for another guy. She still wanted to be friends. She asked me to come meet her at a Starbucks we frequented, and without having let enough time pass, I said yes. I was bitter about the whole thing, and eventually, we both realized being friends was not going to work, and we were forcing a friendship that no one wanted. I left with a gaping emotional wound that didn't heal for a long time. In the end, I got my cake CD back from her before I left. She called about 6 months after leaving the house and kids for the guy she was cheating on me with. I had basically gone no contact after she decided to light her entire life on fire and throw me under the bus to care for the kids and the house bills. She was crying, begging to be taken back. She had moved to another town about an hour away to rebuild her life and explore something new for herself, and was not doing well mentally at all. I still remember her sobbing to me, telling me how sorry she was and that she will be the best wife ever. I was very doubtful, but believed her. It took weeks of phone calls between us to begin rebuilding trust. About 2 months later she stuck around for Christmas and the kids, then sat me down to let me know she was feeling confused about her relationship with the other guy and promptly left again. Turns out she had been playing both sides the entire time. I had to tell my kids a second time that she wasn't coming back. They're getting married in a few months and I've completely cut off contact at this point. Never trust a cheater, and never respect someone who willingly does that with a married woman. We hung out while she washed clothes. Then we slept together. Then we kept sleeping together even after she told me she pawned my ring. I took it as a challenge to get her something better even though it was gone. Then we kept sleeping together, old pet names, and future plans. Then she ghosted me again after I rearranged her place for her and her son, last Father's Day. She moved in with her now husband like 3 months later. That's a real timeline. Met up, talked for a bit. Didn't feel like meeting her again and she never got in touch after the meetup. She did start showing up in Facebook friend suggestions shortly after, and has been an A-lister on that list since, even though I never visit her page and we barely have any mutual friends. We broke up when I was a senior in high school. Fast forward a few years to college, and I wake up at 4 AM to a few missed calls from my ex. She calls again and I pick up while on the commode. She told me she cheated on me while we were dating in high school. Turns out it was with a very scummy dude, which was funny. So I laughed at her and hung up. She wanted me removed from the title on her car, that she just paid off, that I co-signed since she's never financed a vehicle. It was pretty painless. She just needed me to sign over the title. She sent the title with a stamped return envelope. I signed, sent it back, and that was that. We stayed friends for a little bit after the breaking up, but ended up drifted apart after we both got into serious relationships. So haven't talked to her in a couple years. I was tempted to ask her for the down payment back, since I paid it. But figured I'd just cut ties again and not bother with it. I had broken up with him a few years before because all we were doing was arguing and neither one of us were happy. We struggled with our relationship due to our age, lack of money, and no way to each other. High school times lol. One of the last things I told him was he was the right person for me but just at the wrong time. He sent me a random message one day, about 4 years later, asking to talk. We unpacked a lot of feelings, apologies and agreed to be friends. That lasted for about 3 days before he confessed he would do anything to give us another shot. He told me he could never rest without knowing when the right time was. We'll be celebrating our 6-year anniversary in September. It had been about 2 years since we broke up and she wanted to catch up. We didn't break up badly, we just didn't work out. She was moving out to the middle of nowhere Colorado with her parents and she wanted to buy some of my gardening stuff I wasn't going to use anymore. She wanted to pay me, but I didn't want her money. I was just glad it was going to get used. We parted ways after a few drinks and that was that. Hope she's living good off grid. When we broke up I blocked her on everything except for her phone number, in case of emergencies, but I obviously removed the contact from my phone and hoped I'd forget the number. Not because she did anything wrong, but because any reminder that she even existed was too much to handle. About 2 years later, I got a text from an unsaved number asking if we could catch up for lunch. When I realized who it was I went through a whole bunch of different emotions, anger among them. After a while of letting the notification sit on my lock screen, I realized I didn't actually have any reason to be mad and it would actually be nice to catch up. As a nice final note, we had lunch about a week later and it was fantastic, like catching up with an old friend. There was no anger or jealousy or resentment, Just genuine joy of hearing how well she was doing, and telling her the same. The closest thing to closure I could have possibly asked for. Anger costs too many calories. She called saying that she was at a party with some friends at some guy's house, and after a couple of drinks she had a blackout and wasn't feeling really good. She asked me if I could go pick her up, and that I did. I was about to enter a test at that time and chose it to go pick her up. She didn't look good at all, and my god, I was so about to punch a bunch of MFs at that moment. She ran to the car as soon as the door opened. I stayed with her till she felt better and took her home. We didn't speak about it for the following years. And well, years later we ended up in the same job and on the same charge. I liked the person that she had become, and after about 6 months working together we decided to give it another try. Today, 3 years after that, she's the love of my life. The best relationship that I ever had, and I find myself planning 24/7 on how will I propose to her. Around 6 months after we broke up, she called me crying because her new boyfriend basically decided he was done with her out of the blue. She didn't leave me for him or anything, but he basically jumped on the chance to have her as soon as we broke up. We've been happily together for 4 years now since. Love her more than life itself. So happy I picked up that night. Ex called me from an unknown number as I had his number blocked. He left a voicemail asking me to call him back. We broke up in 2019 and haven't spoken since. Out of curiosity I called him back. He told me one of his exes is apparently claiming that he was physically abusive towards her, and asked if I would be willing to help him out by testifying that he had never been abusive to me while we were together. I respectfully declined and wished him well. He called back again and left another message as our call cut off due to poor service. He wished me well and then asked me out. I have not called back. It had been 3 years or so. We moved across the country together and broke up our first day after the move. Our relationship was very volatile and we both treated one another horribly. I was very surprised when I answered the phone and she was the one speaking. I was a different man back then. I've learned that hate and resentment are both exhausting, so when she told me she was in town seeing friends and invited me out for lunch, I agreed. It was surprisingly pleasant. We both grew up and changed a lot. We didn't talk about the bad times, we just caught up with one another, and it was great seeing her in such good spirits. She's since moved to the East Coast and got married while I'm in a very healthy relationship. That was 2 years ago and we've stayed in touch since. We don't talk a ton, but it's nice having a positive relationship with her considering the hell we put one another through.